Hi, everybody. So we have a lot to cover today. We have the short-term rentals. We're going to talk a little bit about wholesaling. We are going to talk about Social Security and estate planning, and then the beneficial owner filing. What I wanted to do was to actually go to the website because I understand that it takes about 8 minutes to get it completed. So what I wanted to do was to go on there and actually try to do it for one entity. And then for those of you that have your entity information, you can also try to do it while we're on the call, just to see what comes up, if there's any issues that come up while we're doing it. I'm waiting for it to come up, so I'll post the link. And then those that want to get theirs done while we're on the call, we can all do it together, just to see what's going on. So, okay. All right, so I'm posting the link in the chat. And this is the form. It says to file the PDF or file the online one. So for me, I want to do the online one, prepare and submit. You are entering into government information system. I agree. And here it says filing information, initial report, correct, update, new exempt. So I'm going to say initial. And then it says Privacy Act reduction. I'm going to say next. Need help, request to receive FinCEN ID, foreign pooled investment. I don't know anything about a FinCEN ID. Does anybody know anything about a FinCEN ID? Otherwise, I'm just going to ignore it. Okay. So now it says the legal name. Let me go in and pull up one of the entities I'm going to file. Once I start typing in the name, I'll stop sharing the screen. By the way, is anybody else trying to file it online? File theirs online while we're doing it so we can all do it together? So what I'm doing now is I'm going to my tax return to pull up the tax return. That's what I'm going to use to fill out this information. Let's see if it asks me for something else. Okay, Brendan. Okay. So now I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can put in the information. Okay, business name. It asks for trade name, DBA. I don't have any of that. It asks for EIN number, so I'm going to put in the EIN number. All this stuff is coming from the it's coming from the tax return. And then it's saying select country. I put the United States, state of formation. I put in Maryland. Tribal jurisdiction. I don't have any of that. And then I click next. Okay, so now I'm going to go back and share my screen again now. Okay, existing reporting company. So that's existing reporting company. Okay. Company applicant information. Okay, so now it's asking me for my name. Oh, all of this is grayed out. Okay. So it said something when I said existing company, it grayed it out. So it says check if existing reporting company as of January 1. So I checked that and it says when existing reporting company is indicated, all company applicant fields fled or disabled, do you wish to continue? So of course I said yes. So it sounds like I don't need to do anything else here. And then now I need to drag an identifying document. So it looks like it's asking me for a copy of my ID. Hold on, I'm trying to see here. Okay, I don't know why it looks like it's not asking for any of that because it's an existing one. So I click on next. And the beneficial owner, whether it's a parent or guardian information instead of minor child, I'm not putting any of that information. Exempt is not exempt. Individuals, last name, I'm putting mine. First name, Abera. Middle name, Malucci. Date of birth. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Well, I guess you guys might figure it out based on me telling you how old I turned last year. But I'm going to stop that and then go back in. And then address, I'm putting in the address now. I'm putting in the state. And I'm putting in the zip code. And click next. So I'm sharing my screen again. I certify that I'm authorized to file this on behalf. I agree. And ensure, okay. Email address. I'm going to put in my email address. And I'm going to confirm the email address. And my first name, last name, I agree. Why does it keep erroring out? City, state, and country. What am I doing wrong? Okay, let's try this again. Oh, okay. Where I have to put in driver's license and I need to put in the number. Hold on, let me grab it. All right, I'll stop sharing to put in my ID. This is Maryland. Country, state, Maryland. And now it wants me to go and upload my ID. So now I'm going to pull my ID in order to upload. And I'll share my screen again. I said I agree. This thing keeps messing me up. Okay, let me go back. It keeps saying I haven't put in, I don't know where it's looking. Let me go back. Go back. Oh, current US address. Okay, so let me put that in. Okay. And just putting in the address. Maryland. Zip code 20705. Okay, next, next, next. Now it says I agree, so let me share my screen again. I agree, it says I'm human. Click on the area pattern, okay. Okay. Okay, and then I'm saying submit. Okay, so now it's saying that I've successfully submitted it and I can download it. And this, I think we started at about 3:05 or whatever. So it took me about 10 minutes or less to get this done. So it doesn't look like it takes that long. Has anybody tried to file theirs and had any issues before we move on? Anybody has any questions about the beneficial owner reporting before we continue on? I just wanted us to do it together on the line just to see how long it takes. For us, we're not filing it yet for anyone because we are waiting to hear back from Maryland Board of Accountancy and also from our insurance, whether or not we're authorized to file it on behalf of clients without getting into the whole thing about the unauthorized practice of law. So once we get word on that, you know, we'll let you guys know. But so far, it looks like this only took 10 minutes to do, and it's nothing complicated at all. Is this required for all business? Yes, all businesses are required to file. If you're an existing business, you have up till January of 2025 to get it done. If you are a new business, you have 90 days from the time that the business was formed to get it done. Okay. All right, so the next thing that we're gonna cover, I was talking to a client today and the whole issue of when to start collecting on Social Security came up. So let's just do a poll here. Brenda, 90 days from when the entity was set up. So if you set up the entity March 1st, you have 90 days from March 1st. So April, May, June 1st to go ahead and report. Okay, so when we were talking about the issue of Social Security, one of the things that came up was when, from a I'll say legal or Social Security standpoint, when you are able to start drawing from Social Security. Does anybody know what the requirements are to be able to take money out from Social Security, to start drawing on Social Security? $65, okay, Lynn, say 65. That's partially correct. Any other person? According to when you were born. Okay, that's partially correct. Let's keep going. 62, okay. Sharon is right. What other information do we need? Are we able to start at 62? What are the requirements? Need to earn 40 credits for the quarter. Okay, that's correct. Anything else? Okay. So when I was talking to somebody today, the issue, they thought that they needed to be completely retired in order to draw from Social Security. And that's not accurate. You don't need to be completely retired in order to draw from Social Security. You can start drawing from Social Security when you are 62 years old, you can start drawing. Now, the amount of money is not going to be the same as when you're 65, and definitely is going to be lower than what it will be if you waited till 70. So the analysis that I wanted to do today is, does it make sense to wait till you're 65 because you get more? Or does it make sense to take out the money now? What do you guys think? Does it make sense to start drawing Social Security when you're 62 and maybe still working? Or should you wait till 65 or should you wait till 70? What do you guys think? I seem to be the only one talking and I feel lonely. Can somebody unmute and talk to me, please?
It depends how much you make, because you're allowed to make a certain dollar amount every year and take your Social Security early. If you wait till your full Social Security, which for me was 66 and 4 months, then I could make as much money as I wanted and it wouldn't affect my Social Security.
Okay. All right, anyone else?
I think it depends on your financial situation. I mean, if you have an earned income and you're able to live off of it, then it would make more sense to wait.
Okay. Anybody else, any other angle that you want to bring up? Okay, so the thing with Social Security is that you are allowed to start pulling money out. Let me share my screen for one person's. You are allowed to stop pulling money out when you're 62, right? So for this person, if they pull the money out when they're 62, they would get $22.77. If they waited until their full retirement age, they can take out $3,000. If they waited until they're 70, they can take out $39.05. Now, the IRS is explaining that, oh, you know, that there's going to be a delay when you pull it out, but we have to look at, does it make sense to wait? When it comes on the tax side, as long as you're earning income from other sources, your Social Security will be taxed. Now, if that's the only income that you're earning, you may not have taxes to pay because you're not earning income from other sources. However, you were allowed to take out your money early. Now, let us do a calculation for this person to see whether it makes sense for them to take out their money now that they're at 63 and 5 months, or should they wait until they're 67? Just based off of these numbers that we're looking at, what do you guys think? What is your initial assessment? If you were just looking at these numbers, what would you tell the person to do? Would you tell the person to take the money now, or would you tell them to wait?
I would tell them to wait if they could afford it.
Okay, wait if they can afford it. Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I would say wait as well if they are healthy. Now, if they are relatively unhealthy, then they probably want to start drawing as soon as possible.
Okay. All right, good. I like all these answers. Anybody else? Okay. So it sounds like we're more in favor of waiting. So now let's go and look at whether or not that would be the best thing in this scenario. And usually for everybody, I suggest that you run these numbers and do the calculation, because just looking at it, it looks like, oh, I get more. How many years later? 63, about 3 years later, 3.5 years later, you get more. But does that really benefit you in the long run? So now let's run the numbers, pull out my calculator. So let's say you started at 22.77. That's when you're 63 and 5 months. So 64, 65, 66, 67. So that's 3.5 years. 3.5 years times 12 months gives you 42 months. So if you started drawing Social Security at 63 and 5 months, by the time you're 67 years old, you would have drawn a total of $95,634. Is everybody following me so far?
Yes.
If this person started now at 63 years and 5 months, when they get to 67, they would have taken out 3.5 years worth of Social Security. They'll get 95,634. Now, come 67, they're able to take out $3,000 because they waited, right? So it seems that it would make sense to wait. But now let's look at the cost of waiting. The difference between pulling out at 67 and pulling out at 63.5 is $797. So you gain $797 extra a month by waiting, but you lose $95,634 by waiting. So the analysis that I do is how long does it take you to recover the $95,000 that you would have gotten if you had started early? So what I do is I divide the $95,634 divided by the $797 extra that you're getting. That means it's going to take you 120 months to recover that. 120 months divided by 12 months, it takes you 10 years. So what this is saying is that because you get paid more at 67 years old, it will take you till you're 77 years old to experience the benefit of waiting. So somebody who started at 63 and 5 months, it's not until they turn 77, which is almost 15 years later, is when you would see the benefit of waiting. And this 77 is assuming the person doesn't do anything with the funds. What if they invested that money, did something with it, and waited until 67? That means that it very well could be 13 or 14 years before you see that benefit. So now let's go back and analyze it. Does it make sense to take the money now at 62 or wait until you're 77 years old, probably 80 or 81 years old, to see the benefit of waiting?
The only bad thing about taking a chance to waiting is that you don't know how long you're going to live. So once you die, then the money is dead.
Yep.
So I don't know if waiting is such a good idea.
Yep. And then the other thing is also, if you were to invest that $95,000 yourself, if you invested in a good vehicle, even if it's a 5% return or a 7% return, if you do the rule of 72, that money could double in those 10 years, which could even push it out further. Do you now understand why the IRS would willingly give you more money for waiting? Do you, not IRS, I'm sorry, Social Security. Do you understand why they would prefer that you wait? Do you understand why now?
Yeah, it seems like they are incentivizing you to wait with the hope that you'll actually transition before you actually get the money.
Now you understand it. I'm so glad that I finally, it's amazing how many people don't realize this until you do the analysis.
That's huge. That's a big wow, aha moment.
Yes.
So Corey's asking, what is our take on the program running out of money anytime? Do we think it's gonna happen? Do you care if it's gonna happen? What are some things? Or do you think that they're counting on a lot of people doing this, not doing this analysis and choosing to wait? What do you guys think?
Yeah, just from some of the stuff that I have read, it seems like, from my perspective, from what I've read, it seems like a lot of folks are leaning towards waiting.
Yep.
But a lot of people don't understand that the whole analysis, because I didn't until today. I thought that you had to retire in order to even take Social Security.
Yeah, so there's a lot of misinformation that is out there, and that's why it's good to, make sure that you're in the right network, having these kind of discussions, making sure that you're working with your financial planner, accountant to do these kinds of analysis to actually see. I can't tell you how many decisions I've made just by taking the time to look at things on paper, even things like health insurance. When I ran my health insurance on paper, I decided, why am I going to work for somebody just to get health insurance? So there's a lot of things that when you hear it, it sounds like, oh, I can get paid an extra $1,000 by waiting, and you don't realize that you're shortchanging yourself. And it actually defeats the whole thing about be your own bank. Okay, so I'll pause now. Can I get one or two people to tell me what is one thing that you learned or took away from this based on this analysis? And then does anybody have any additional questions before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, just based on what you have elucidated with your analysis, if one is a relatively savvy investor, then yeah, take the money early, and then you can actually invest. So in other words, you would actually be losing out if you are a relatively savvy investor, because you would be losing 95,000, waiting an extra few years just to get an extra, few dollars.
And then do we all understand the rule of 72? Do we know what the rule of 72 is?
Yes.
What's the rule of 72?
Well, essentially, you divide whatever return you're getting on your capital. You divide 72 by that interest rate or that return rate, and it tells you how many years it would take for your money to double.
Okay, so assuming that we wanted this 95,000 to double in 10 years, so by the time that we're 77, we wanted this money to double. What interest rate would we have to be getting in order for that money to double?
7%.
Is it possible that as a real estate investor that you have better uses for your money that could give you 7%?
Absolutely.
Yep. And even when you do factor in what taxes you have to pay, because remember, if you take it at 62 and you're still working, even if you take it at 66 and you're still working, even after you take out the tax impact may just be 1 year worth of, that you have to use to pay the taxes. Now it goes down from 10 years to 9 years. But if you did the rule of 72, it very well may not even be 77 years old. It very well could be 87 years old. And at the rate that things are going, why would I want to be hanging out here then? Well, we'll see. All right, any more comments or questions before we move on? Okay, so I do want one person to let me know what is, from a financial planning perspective, what is it that you learned today? So I like what Eric said, about being an investor, but tell me what else, what is your general takeaway now from what you've heard today?
I'm losing money
You're losing money by what?
by waiting.
Look at things on paper.
Yeah. Yep. Look at things on paper. You're losing money by waiting. Don't always think that when you're presented with more, that it really is more. Always ask yourself, how do I explain it? It's like when credit card companies tell you they'll give you cash back. Always ask yourself, what is the benefit to the other person? Why would they want to give you more later? There's got to be a benefit. Always ask yourself, what is the other person benefiting by what the information they're giving you? Because it's a zero-sum game. Somebody's gonna lose, somebody's gonna win. And so by waiting this $95,000, what you did was you just put more money into the Social Security pocket. And so they're gonna give you a little bit of it back. Yep, Nadia, always crunch the numbers. Yep. You should do a YouTube short. Okay. Okay, absolutely. I'll definitely think about that. I've been thinking about doing I don't know, I'm just lazy. I'm getting ready to retire. I know it sounds crazy, but so I'll think about it. Thank you. All right, so moving on. We have somebody that's looking for a contractor in Prince George's County. Does anybody here have any referrals that you can send us? You can post it in the chat. You know, can anybody post it in the chat? Somebody's looking for a contractor in Prince George's County. They don't, so if you know anybody, please post it or give your number and then they'll reach out. All right, the next thing that we're going to look at now is short-term rentals. So, you know, we looked at buy and holds, and then we looked at, actually the last two times we looked at buy and holds. But today we want to focus on short-term rentals and the tax impact of short-term rentals. So there's three main requirements that you need to meet for you to be able to take advantage of the short-term rental loophole. The first one is that you need to rent out your short-term rental, like Airbnb, whatever, about average of 7 days or less. And you need to spend at least 100 hours a year managing that property. You need to manage it more than any other person in terms of the time that you put in. And you need to provide incidental services, you know, whether it's laundry or cooking, whatever it is, it has to be more than just a regular rent. Okay, so these are the requirements that you have to meet. And if you meet that requirement, then it's no longer considered a passive investment. You are able to claim all the passive losses on that property, which means that you can do cost segregation and accelerate the depreciation on that property to be able to get the benefit now. So that's why it's being called a loophole, because now you're able to bypass the passive activity loss and be able to claim the losses on the short-term rental in the first year. Does anybody have any questions before we move on? I also want to bring up Corey for us to also look at the loan aspect of it. But does anybody have any questions? Is anybody here even doing short-term rentals? How is this market going? I heard it's been crazy with all of the requirements, and a lot of people are getting into the short-term rental market. Is anybody here doing short-term rentals where you can give us some feedback?
I was doing short-term rentals in Silver Spring. I still have a short-term rental in Florida. Well, it's more of a term now, but I still do use it occasionally for Airbnb. But I found that furnished finders is more effective for me because I don't want to, I manage it from a distance, so I don't want to have to, you know, have somebody in and out, you know, with less than 7 days. But with the Airbnb, I actually did get audited. So that was a headache. And so the Airbnb here in Silver Spring, so I converted it back to a long-term rental.
So what was the outcome of the audit, or what was it that they were looking at?
So they were looking, it was the state that audited me, and they just wanted to see all of my expenses, like all of them. And just that it reconciled with my tax return. So initially I got hit with like owing $10,000, but I appealed and went through all my records and sent everything, and it ended up they owed like $250.
Okay. But why did that cause you to change your strategy?
I had already changed just because I just felt like I was paying too much for cleaning fees, etc. And I was making maybe $3,600 a month, and I'm, you know, now making $2,700. But yet there were more fees and more headache attached to the Airbnb, you know, process.
Is Furnished Finders the one for the traveling nurses?
Yes.
Okay, is it only for traveling nurses?
No, no,
Okay.
it's for
Well, why
anybody.
is it that so? Because whenever I hear Furnished Finders, I always hear, nurses,
They
so,
market it to them, but anybody
Okay.
can use it.
okay,
And it's usually a 30-day minimum.
okay. 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 Corey, do you want to, oh, wait, let me read all this first and then I'll bring up Corey to tell us about the loan aspect. Okay, Brendan just started midterm rentals. Hold on. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on with my chat. Hold on. Okay, Arlene is looking for a contractor in North Carolina in case somebody knows somebody. Lynn just provided contact information for somebody for contract work in Prince George's County. So you can reach out to them. Brendan just started his midterm rental. Okay, he'll see how it will go. Corey wants to know which areas in DC allow short-term rental. I don't know if anybody here has that answer. If you do, please feel free to post. Arlene has a short-term rental in North Carolina. You also use Furnished Finders. Okay. Travel medical profession. And I don't know if you guys know, but the travel medical profession has really gained a lot of ground, especially in the last 4 years. They're really almost like making as much money as the IT people, if not more. So that has really picked up. So a lot of people just prefer now to travel from place to place to offer that short-term medical services. That's why even the whole renting out to them becomes a very viable option. Okay.
And
Okay.
one other thing I'd like to add, Abiri, is that as a result of this process, I started looking more deeply into I guess the laws in Montgomery County, which is where my property is located, and they
Mhm.
have a limit. I think you could only do short-term rental for, I think it was 90 days.
Mhm.
Fortunately, I didn't get pinged on that, but that's another thing that would, dissuade me from continuing in the short-term rental market.
Okay. Brendan, if you email us, let's see. David, are you on? Can you connect Brendan with Bridget Smith? Because I know she does some things in the Fayetteville area. She might be able to assist Brendan. All right, short-term rental in our private residence. Okay, in the Caribbean. Okay. Leases a 3-month minimum on short-term rentals to medical professionals. Okay. All right. Is somebody sharing this screen for a reason? Okay. Corey, can you tell us a little bit from the financing aspect about short-term rentals?
Sorry, I was sharing the wrong screen.
Oh.
There you go. Yes, hi, everyone. I'll be quick here. I have I wanted to go over the short-term rental, some short-term rental financing considerations. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. If you haven't met me on some of the other seminars, that's my background. I've owned a mortgage company, Best Loan Choice, going 10 years this year. And I have over 20 years in lending and banking experience. So that's my background. Short-term rentals, I am very interested because this is a market that's growing. like any real estate, if you know the financing, you can grow your project, right? You need to understand the financing, the strategy, how the financing works to really effectively grow your portfolio. So this is what I'm going to go over with you all today. Let's talk about considerations for short-term rental loan programs. So when you get into short-term rentals, I do a lot of short-term rentals for people who want to get, a lot of people in this area are looking at places on the Eastern Shore, Ocean City, Delaware beaches, Virginia Beach. Even in the DC area, we get a lot of people who might be looking at the Outer Banks. There's a lot to look at right now because it's a very hot market. I think hotels are losing a lot of market share, so there's some challenges there. But getting into the loan program considerations, when you get into a short-term rental, you have to determine whether it's going to be a purchase or a refinance is one of the pieces, and that's going to come into play on the type of income you're needing to qualify. So one of the things we can do now on short-term rentals is that we can use the Airbnb type income to qualify. Okay.
Wait, Corey, are you sharing? We're seeing an email. Were you trying to share a presentation?
It's still not sharing it. Okay, hold on one second. Okay. Is that working now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Everybody can see it now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, great. So as far as, okay, sorry, that was my background. Okay, so the short-term loan program considerations we talked about. The key pieces here when it comes to short-term rentals is looking at the loan income. What type, how are you going to qualify from an income standpoint? How do you want to close on the short-term rental? Is it going to close in an LLC or your individual name? And a lot of short-term rentals, especially in the resort areas, are condos. So the warrantability comes into play. Look at Ocean City, for example. Most of the condos, a good portion of condos in Ocean City, are not even considered warrantable from a conventional loan standpoint. So then you have to start looking into how does that affect your loan. Okay, let's go into the next page here. Income qualifying considerations. So on short-term rental properties, I have several clients that still like to use a conventional loan for short-term rental purchase. The reason why conventional loans typically are going to be the lowest interest rates, but they're going to require more documentation. Okay, so when you get into a short-term rental, you start to look at, if you're going for a full income loan, you're looking at the Schedule E on the tax returns. If you have real estate properties. Now, if you're buying a new property, that you're not going to be able to use the Schedule E to qualify. So you're going to need to qualify typically with what's called a 1007. Does anyone here know what a 1007 is? A market rent report. Okay. 1007 is it's an appraisal based on market rent that the appraiser does. That can be used to actually qualify the loan on a purchase. So you can use that market rent as income. Okay, so on a market rent income, 1007, what comes into play, that this is a very important piece of the details, is that a lot of banks and lenders, the appraiser will not use short-term rental income, even if you're in a resort area. So you really want to work with a lender or a loan officer that knows how to get the appraiser to use short-term rental comparables for market rent instead of long-term rental, because typically short-term rental comps in a resort area, for example, like Ocean City, can be 2 or 3 times higher on a monthly basis than long-term rental. That comes into play on how much you can qualify for on the loan. Okay, so this is just things to consider. It's a lot to talk about in a short time period. I know Abir has a lot to cover here, but if you want, I think in the future, Abir and I have talked about putting together like a specific, a little bit more specific seminar that's just on like short-term rental qualifications, and maybe even getting into further depth with how we can structure the tax benefits to that. Okay, so I'd be happy to go into more details with any of you on that. The last page here is, again, if you're looking at resort areas, okay, the short-term rental options are usually condos. So the warrantability really comes into play. What I mean by warrantability is that the condo has, for example, more investors than second homes. I'm sorry, more investors than primary residence people, or if it's a situation where, in a lot of cases, the insurance may not be adequate. There might, this happens a lot of condos, they have like a rental desk or a real estate agent desk in the building. Well, that's a no-no for conventional approval. So that doesn't mean you can't get financing. It just means that now you need to look at other loan programs. Maybe a higher rate, but that should be reflected in the sales price. Still doesn't mean that it's not going to be a profitable option for you in a short-term rental investment. So this is kind of my overview for today. Thanks, Abir, for letting me go over some short-term rental considerations. There's a lot to think about here. I think using Abir's tax strategies, like we talked about the short-term rental tax loophole, with my financing strategies, the combination of the two, I think, could really help you build this type of portfolio. And this is a really, you know, I don't think that's going away anywhere soon. I think Airbnb, VRBO, these companies were clear disruptors in the hotel industry. That is not, you know, the consumer, just like Uber with taxi cabs, continues to speak, and they, you know, families, they like the option of short-term rentals. You know, you're not going to convince families to go back into hotel rooms. Like, you know, the parties that they've disrupted the industry, and that's an opportunity for all of us here. That's my take on it, and I'll let it go back to you, Abir. I think you're on mute, Abir.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you so much, Corey, for that. Yeah, I agree that if you're able to be approved on the short-term rental, that would actually be awesome, because yeah, you're seeing at least 2 to 3 times as much rent on people that are doing short-term rentals compared to long-term. Of course, you know, like Lynn said, we have to assess all the risk and everything that comes with it, you know, but it looks like going the short-term rental option sounds like something that could get you qualified, and even be able to get qualified for a higher amount than when you're just looking at long-term. Does anybody have any questions for Corey before we start wrapping up here?
I did want to add one thing. We are licensed in Florida and California now. We may be looking at North Carolina soon if we start building some relationships there. But Florida right now, the market has kind of cooled off a little bit because of the higher rates. But with that being said, I think it's still a very good time, especially if you're looking at areas that are close to beach areas, resort areas. You know, you're certainly, there's the income, I think, is good because your cap rate based on the sales price is really good down there. Ocean City's great as far as the rental income, but the prices are so high, the cap rate's not always as strong. Anyway, that's my last piece, and I'll let you.
Okay, thank you. You can stop sharing your screen. So let's see here. I'm trying to see all the other things that I had. I think I covered it all. I wanted to ask you guys, as your accountant, what else would you want to, what other services could we offer you that would be of value? Or is there any other topic that you think would be of value? Next week, we're gonna have Glory Fonter on here. She's done a tremendous job with doing rehabs. So we're, kind of looking at the different real estate strategies and the tax implications. And then what I do is to bring clients on who are able to offer that. Tax saving strategies. Okay, let me tell you the reason why I usually don't cover tax saving strategies on the call. It will be more informational for you because guess what? This is a client call. And so if you're a client, we are already looking at tax saving strategies when we prepare your return. We're looking at using, retirement, using cost segregation, forming S corps, accelerating depreciation. So the different strategies that are out there, we're already looking at that because we prepare your returns. Now, if I'm talking to outsiders because I want to market or, build my practice, then I would focus more on the tax saving strategies. That's why you see me covering. That's why you may not hear me talk a lot about tax saving strategies, although I will, share things with you to give you that information, but we're already implementing it. One of the things that you could request is whenever we finish your return, depending on how things are shaking out, like if you're owing, we could request a meeting. But if you're not owing, we'll send you the numbers by email. You could request to say, hey, can we review my return? This is one of the things that we do now that we're doing the annual business meetings. So if you haven't already scheduled your annual business meeting, please do that. We will look at all those things, and those are the things that we're looking at when we do your annual business meeting. Okay.
All right, yeah, so I'm glad you asked that. So it would be helpful for me to have any information regarding cryptocurrencies.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's been some debate about whether or not they're looked upon as being like equities or commodities, and so et cetera. So any information regarding crypto would be definitely helpful for me.
Okay. All right, Brendan, I see yours. TSP 401 fundamentals, budgeting. Okay. Let's talk about budgeting, maybe because I don't like budget. So let's talk about budgeting for a little bit, because Melinda's saying here that she wants to talk about budgeting. How many people here have a budget? And if you don't have a budget, how do you manage your finances? And I'll tell you in a second why I'm not a fan of budgeting. But how many people here budget? You have a budget, you follow it, and it's helped you. And if you don't follow a budget, how do you manage your finances? People are like,
Eber, for me, I know what my expenses are for the month, and then like I know what my income is on average, because with business it does vary. And then I see what's left over essentially and spend off of that, save and spend off of that. But I don't feel like that's an effective way.
Okay, the reason why I don't budget is because I feel like it's very restrictive. Like I feel like my life is already restricted enough. I'm not gonna do that for money again. But what I do is instead what I call my big rocks. So rather than putting myself on a budget, because when I hear budget, I'm hearing, oh, you can only spend this much for food and spend this much for groceries and spend this much for mortgage or spend this much for clothing. I don't do that. What I do instead is to pick up my big rocks. And what are my big rocks? Kids' college funding, kids' college has to be funded. My retirement has to be funded. My pre-retirement, because my goal is I want, every year I go down at least half a day of work. So now when it's not tax season, I go from 5 days to 4 days. And then starting last year, I went from 4 days to 3 days. And I'm hoping next year, 3 days to 2 days, to the point where 6 months out of the year, I'm only working 1 day a week. But in order to do that, you need to have enough money saved up that I'm able to use, to be able to, say, okay, I'm gonna, be able to make this decision. But in order for me to do that, there has to be a certain amount of money that is being set aside. With the insurance, there has to be a certain amount of money that I'm putting towards my maximum funded life insurance. There has to be a certain amount of money I'm putting on for my 401k plan, for the kids' maximum funded life insurance. So what I do is at the beginning of the year, I decide how much each of these big rocks are. I also decide what my charitable spending is going to be, like how much I want to do into missions work and ministry work and all that. Once all of those are taken care of, then I don't worry about the little things. I feel like the little things will resolve itself with whatever money I have left in the bank. But at least I know that these big issues, which are issues about, the kids and their future, my retirement, my legacy, my charitable and foundation giving, once I take care of all of those, then the rest, so I can't say like how much I'm spending every month on food or like housing or, car or a vacation, because the rest of the money is coming out and then I just deal with whatever is left. Does anybody else have any other one? I am going to talk about budgeting now that you requested it. It's just that's the reason why you wouldn't hear me talk about it a lot, because of how, but I can see where there's others where it would help them to know where each category is going. All right, Nadia said we typically spend very little income. Very little income is usually higher than spending. Okay, that's good. That's at least a base to make sure that your income is higher. I consulted with the client today and they wanted to be able to stop working when they're 48. But in order to stop working when you're 48, you need to have a certain amount of income. If you don't have that amount of income, it makes it harder to say, hey, I'm going to be able to do that. Now there are certain targets, purchase these many properties, save this amount of money and all that. They have a while to go, but in order to get there, you need to work on what I call these big rocks. All right, any last comments or questions as we wrap up? We have one more meeting next week and we're done with the business meetings. And then I'll try to see maybe once a month in July and August. We'll have more meeting when we'll cover maybe the budgeting and all these other topics that you guys brought up. All right, anybody else? Okay, thank you guys for coming on. We will send out the recording and all the meetings that we've had are going to be uploaded to YouTube, and we will share the link every week. And when we're done with the business meetings, we'll share all the links. Nice talking with you guys. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. If you have not yet scheduled your business meeting, please reach out. If you're in the wealth building program, it's free. If you're not in the wealth building program, then you have to pay a fee to be able to take advantage of the business meetings. Have a great day. Bye-bye.